What's up, everybody? So I'm Mr. Porkchop back here with another video. Today's video is going to be basically all about text files. Um, so, I mean, if you've been enjoying this Python series that I've been doing, please, like this video, subscribe so you can see my future videos. I am going to start, I think, doing videos every 2 weeks instead of every week now, only because I'm pretty pressed for time with school and my daughter Autumn and everything else that's been going on at the house. There's a lot going on. I won't get into all of it, but you guys could probably should expect to see a video every 2 weeks now. I will try to get more than that if I can, but that is my goal as of right now. Um, so, but as always, thank you guys for following and for commenting, for watching my videos. It's great to interact with you guys. I love getting comments and being able to interact with you guys, answer questions, or just say what's up. So, yeah, without further ado, we'll get into this video. All right, what's up, everybody? So today, I'm going to be going into chapter 10, which is all about working with text files and also exceptions. I'm not going to get into exceptions. I'm not going to get into exceptions today. I'm only going to cover the text files. So for this project, I'm actually going to create a new project. And one of the reasons that I want to create a new project for this is just because I wanted to show you basically file paths and where to keep your text files when you want to use them in order for you to be able to access them. So yeah, we'll just call this working with text files, I guess. It's probably a longer name than I needed, but that's fine. We'll do this window. All right, so this will be our project, and we will just go ahead and add a new file into our folder here. You can right click, go to new Python file, and we'll just call this one main. And then we'll have to add our configurations because this is a brand new project. So up here, we can just hit add and then go to Python. And then once you're in here, you can click on this right here. And then just click on the file that you're working with. Press apply. If this is the first time that you actually found a video and you just found this, like, I have a good video on how to set up Python in IntelliJ because there's a lot more that goes into actually setting up Python. This is just setting up a new project once you already have Python set up. But you can go find that video on my channel if you need help setting up Python. So now we have our new project here. We can go ahead and I'm going to want to add my text file actually to this. So you know what, we'll just create our new text file and we'll add it. So we'll go to Notepad. And I think I'm just going to do kind of some names here. It's a list of names. All right. And we'll just do save as. This is obviously a text file. And we are already inside of this. We want to go to our project, which is going to be working with text files. And then we're going to go right into this folder and we're going to save it there. Oh, whoops. Gotta give it a name first. We're just going to call it my list. Okay. So then you can see it actually comes up over here. Now, if you want to access your text file, then what you can do is just type with and then open and then type in the name of your text file, but make sure it's actually a string. So mylist.txt, you can see it comes up because it actually sees it. And then you can give it an alias. You want to try to do, open with and then as. I'm trying to think of what they called it. Oh, as file object. That's what it was. So as file object. All right. So we have this should open up our text file, and then we can do things with this file object. So what we can do is we can do like print and then go file object dot read. And then this is going to read everything inside of our text file and just print it for us. So we should be able to hit this, and it's going to print out Peter, Paul, Mary, Jess, and Autumn, which is what we have inside of our text file. Now, like I said before, one of the reasons I wanted to create a new project, and the reason I saved that file inside of our project, is because if you move it outside of your project folder, then it is not going to be able to find that file, and you're going to get an error. So what we'll do here is our working with text files. So right here is our actual text file. If we move it even just one directory up, just one folder up inside of here, and then we try to run this project, you're going to get this traceback error where it says, you know, file not found, error, no such file or directory. So if you want to organize your files a little bit better, what you can do is, and that actually even works, like it's still going to do the same thing. If you create a new file in here, or a new folder inside of your folder, your project folder, just called like text files, right? So let's move it into there. So now it's still, this folder is still inside of our actual project directory, but it's inside of but the actual file that we want to get is inside this folder. And it's still going to give us that whole can't find it thing, even though it's inside a folder that's inside our directory. If you want to keep your file separated like this, though, you can basically just come up here to the name of your file and just give it the folder name. So I put text files and then a / and go ahead and run that. That will allow you to access this text document, this text file inside of that folder. If you want to bring it outside of your actual, if you want to go up instead of down, like this time we actually have like a folder inside of our project folder. But if you wanted to actually move it farther outside of this to some other place, then what you can do is, like, let's say I move it all the way back to this folder here. It's inside of this folder now. What I can do, yeah, this is my list right here. Let's see. Actually, we'll just copy this. So we can copy this text as address. All right. And before I start messing with this name too much, I'm just going to go file name, and I'm going to set this equal to it. That way I don't have to go back and forth. So this is going to be what's called like an absolute file path name. And your computer automatically uses backslashes, but when you're inside your code, you're going to want to use /, because backslashes, if they are next to certain characters, will actually create special characters, and it can cause issues. So you're definitely going to want to use / inside of this. And now what we can do, instead of putting that, we'll just do file name. And this is what's called an absolute file path. This is telling basically your IDE exactly where the file exists. It's giving you the whole file path, and then if you run it, it can still find the file. The one thing I'll say about this, though, is it can cause issues when you're going from different computers, or you're trying to run programs on different computers, if all the files aren't in the same place. And I had this issue with one of the projects that I actually submitted for one of my classes. I did an absolute file path, and the file was in a different directory. And then when the person that got my project downloaded everything, it went into a different folder for them, or a completely different place for them. So my file path was wrong, and he wasn't able to use that portion of that portion of my project basically just broke because they couldn't find the file. So it's usually better to try to get all of your files, like I did earlier, inside of the same directory as your project. And you can, like I said, you can add those, you can put them inside of their own folder, just to make it that much easier. So ideally, you have your text file folder here, and you have your text files all inside of that folder. And then all you have to do, again, like I said, inside of here is just give it the one folder that it's in. So text files / and then whatever text file that you want. And then from there, it will, again, be able to find it and read it. So that's probably best practice. You don't want to have your files all over your computer just doing absolute paths so that it can find it, because that's messy for one, and then it could cause issues later on. All right, so we've covered pretty much your file paths, where you should be keeping your file, and kind of like the structure of your project. And we covered just the very basics of opening a file that you have and reading that file's contents. So now I'm going to just kind of quickly go through some of the things that you can do with that data inside the file. I'm going to go through, like, basically you can read that. You can read the text file line by line. You can add each line into a list if you want. You can basically concatenate all lines or all text inside of that file into one big string in order to search through the string. You can do a whole bunch of different things with it. So we're gonna do a few different examples here. So we have basically with file name as file object, and you can basically, this is just using one of those aliases, I guess, instead of having to, I mean, basically you just call it whatever you want. So file object is what the book had. You can do like just my file. I don't think it really matters. It's basically just a way for you to work with the file. So you could do my file instead and then do read. But let's go ahead and let's change this read to read line or read lines. So if we do that and we run it, it's going to basically print out a list. So it created kind of like a list of each line with a new line at the end of it. So it took all of these and just put them into like a list. And that's what you can do. You probably don't want to print it like that because it looks kind of funky. But what you can do is you could go like, we'll call this, let's just do like my list, right? Because our text file is my list. So let's create an actual list from our list over here. And now that we've created this list object, we can use it outside of this with operation here. So we could just come down over here and do my list. Actually, let's do like a for loop. So we'll do for names in my list, print names, and that will print all the names that are in our list. Oh, whoops. This should have been my file. Just had a typo in my name. There we go. All right, and now you can see that you have all of the names that were in my list printed out. However, you can also tell that like they're spaced out. There's 2 new lines in between each one. And that's because inside of my text file, there is a new line. I have them all basically right underneath each other. So that's one new line character. And then when you create the list, it also adds like its own new line. So in order to get rid of that, if you don't want those additional spaces, then you can just do names and then use strip. Strip is a function that basically I went over in some of my previous videos, but it basically takes out any additional spaces on either side of your string. And you can also take it off just the right side of your string or just the left side by doing L strip or R strip. Strip will take it off of both sides. But you'll see if we run it like this, then it comes out looking exactly like we had in our text file. So you have all the names with no spaces in between. And that's kind of like what we're looking for. So we created an actual list inside of a program that replicates the text file list that we have. And then you can do basically all the same things that you would normally do with a list. So I'm not going to go over too much more of that. And all of these things, they work no matter how big the file is. As far as text files, like you could have 1,000,000 characters and it wouldn't really matter. It would all still work. So because there's a lot of different spaces and stuff inside of this, so let's say that we wanted to try to find a name inside of our list, then we could just go if, let's say we're looking for the name Peter. If Peter in my list, then we will print Peter is on the list. Else it'll just print Peter is not on the list. All right, so let's run this. And you notice that it says Peter is not on the list, but clearly Peter is the first name on the list. And this is because of all those different spaces. So it's looking for just the string Peter, when I think what's actually in my list is going to be Peter with the new line character. Oops. I think that's what's actually in my list. And then you're going to see there it says Peter is on the list. Yeah. So just be aware of that if you're trying to search for certain things. The other way you could do it, if you didn't want to have to put in the actual new lines inside of there, you could try to, I think you could probably just remove the spacing before you even add it to my list. Instead of using my list, then maybe what you could do is you can create a string. So instead of just having it print each of these names without that, let's create all names string, and this all names string, and actually before that I'm going to create it up here, all names, and I'm just going to set it equal to nothing. And then down inside of my for loop, I'm going to concatenate each of my names right there to my string, right? And then as it loops through my list, it's going to have all my names in one long string. And then from here, I can do if Peter in, and we'll do all names, and then try it. And it's going to say Peter is on the list. And that's because if I go here and I actually print out what all names is, you'll see that it's just going to be, oops. You're going to see that it's going to be pretty much all of the names that are on my list, basically all together. And it still looks like it's putting in those new line characters. I could do all names dot strip, I think is what I really want. And then if you run it, you'll see it does all of my names all in one big long string. And that's really what I was looking for. But either way it works. You can do it like that, and then you can search that string for particular names and then find it from there. I'll try to separate this a little bit. It's kind of cluttered. All right, and then let's say that we wanted to take this a little further and we want to do some input-output kind of stuff. So what we can do is right here, we can do a prompt, right? And we can ask the user to actually give their name, and then we can check the list to see if their name is on the list. That's a little long, but is name on list. And then we'll do input, and our prompt is going to basically say enter your name to see if you are on the list. Okay. And then from here, whoops, messed that up. All right, so now we're going to say if is name on list in all names, then we will print, and we'll go ahead and change this up a bit. And that way we'll have whatever name that they type be either on the list. And I'm just going to copy this part of it. All right, there we go. So it's going to say either they are on the list or they're not on the list, depending on what name is entered. So we can put this in. It still goes through all of its other kind of nonsense that I have there. But at the bottom it says enter the name, put Peter, hit enter, and it's going to say Peter is on the list. So there you go. And if we run this again and try a different name, like John maybe, it's going to say John is not on the list. So again, just kind of some examples of what you can do with the data from your file. All right, so that's basically everything you can do with reading a file. Now, what I'm going to show you next is get rid of all this. So we still just have our one text file, and it's going into a list right now, which we're going to go ahead and remove that too. All right, now this with open and the file name, if you don't give this open a second parameter, then it automatically defaults to read only. And the different parameters, the second parameters that you can give it are, you can either give it W for write, and actually it has to be a string. So you can give it W for write, you can give it R for read, you can give it A for amend, or you can give it R plus for read and write. Now what you are going to have to keep in mind is that if you do write, you can write stuff to the file by going below it and just doing myfile.write and then typing in, you know, whatever you want. However, if I ran this program right now, it would erase my list of names. It's going to erase everything in the file, and then it's going to add this to the end, and then it's going to add this in place of it. If you don't want it to erase your file, then use A for amend, and then this is going to write this last string to the very last, or the bottom of your text file. But if I want this to actually have a new line or be on its own line, then I'm going to have to do the whole \n for new line. That way it won't show up just attached to my last name, which is going to look weird. So we're going to go ahead and run this. And you know what? I'm just going to run it. We'll run it and then I can open the file and show you guys. So we run it and obviously nothing really happens. But if I go over to my actual file, our text file, here's my file. And here you go. Hello world is now at the bottom. So you can see that we were able to amend to our list and we added something to it. Pretty cool. And again, you can do that as many times as you want. You can do my file write and then just keep adding stuff to it, adding lines. Yeah, like I said, if you do write, it erases it. If you do read write, I'm not 100% sure if read write erases your file too. We can actually try this. Let's just try one more time to run this and see if it actually erases my file. Okay, so that's interesting. This one looks like it erased a chunk of my file, which is kind of strange. I only have it writing. This is a read-write file. Let's do just read lines, and actually that's going to make a list, so we'll do we'll just do contents. So make a list called contents of all my files, or all the stuff in my file, and then we'll just go ahead and print. Well, let's do a for loop so it looks a little neater. We'll do for text in contents print text dot. We'll strip everything off of it so that it looks a little neater. And let's go ahead and run this again. And it just says hello world, Mary, Jess, Autumn, and hello world again at the bottom. All right, so it doesn't look like it's actually really erased much. Okay, it keeps adding hello world to the bottom. Yeah, it just keeps adding it. All right, so it doesn't look like it actually messes with it. I'm not sure how the beginning of my file got kind of messed up, but it looks like if you use read plus write, it just kind of adds stuff to the end like a normal amend would. Doesn't look like it actually erases anything for you. But if you use write, not readable. Oh, right. Yeah, because I'm trying to read it right here. I can't do that. So we'll just write it like that. And then if I go into my file, it should actually have just hello world. Yeah, which you can see up here. It erased everything else. All right. So there you have it. Some of the different ways that you can open a file, you know, whether you want it in write mode, read write, or amend. Usually amend, I think, will work the best so that you can just keep adding to your file. And then you can use, you can just leave it blank if you want to do read only. That way you can read it later on. I think that's pretty much all I'm going to touch on in this video. I think I covered everything. If you guys have any questions or you want to know more about this, let me know, and I can try to, you know, add additional information to this video.